Hi everyone, it's your boy Zach. So my buddy's having family visiting, so you might hear random voices in the background and people screaming for juice boxes or things like that. So this is just the world I inhabit right now. But anyway, so I saw. I keep calling this movie She-Ra in my head. Even when I was watching, I was like, this She-Ra movie is really good. So Red Sonja, government name Red She-Ra. I just watched it for the first time ever. In fact, this is one of those movies where, back in the day, they used to show all the, movies on just basic, the three channels. Geez. Well, you had ABC, NBC, and CBS. Then you had PBS, but that wasn't going to show any cool movies ever. So, like on a Saturday, one of the affiliates, they would show just random movies from the past 40 years. So, like Conan the Barbarian, Conan the Destroyer, I would at least see like a little bit of it, a scene. But Red Sonja, so I looked up the box office for Conan the Barbarian, Conan the Destroyer, and the sequel had a higher budget, but both of them made a sizable profit. For some reason, I remembered Conan the Destroyer as being a flop, but it absolutely was not. Red Sonja was a flop, like a super flop. Like it made something like a quarter of a third of its budget. That being said, just like with Conan the Destroyer, which had the same writer or the same director, Richard Fleischer, I didn't see really anything wrong with this movie at all. Now, you can say you didn't see what's her name's Brigitte Nielsen's acting. So, gotta kind of roll your head back a little bit. Back in the day, having big muscles or being a 6 foot tall woman who was really fit, there weren't a lot of those. So you kind of understood that Arnold Schwarzenegger wasn't going to be the best actor. Sylvester Stallone wasn't going to be the best actor. You kind of understood if someone was in really, really, really good shape, most likely they had dedicated most of their life to that, and acting was something they took a couple lessons before the movie started. Nowadays, with the supplements and the good personal trainers, you can basically take any actor and give them 3 to 6 months, and they're going to look like an action figure. They're going to look like a superhero. We didn't used to turn legitimate actors into superheroes. We used to find people who looked like superheroes and make them be actors. So I definitely give her, whatever, a handicap or points or whatever you want to say, that she looks like She-Ra, or freaking Red Sonja. So they cast her, and then just whatever. So this one, like Richard Fleischer's Conan the Destroyer, is very... They're basically like low-key Dungeons and Dragons movies. In fact, if you ever saw the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon from the 1980s, it's basically that. You're going to have, one person from each class. You're going to have a paladin. You're going to have a wizard. You're going to have a knight. Or is paladins and knights the same thing? You're going to have a thief. You know what I mean? And that's how it's going to be. So the other thing that I didn't know until like 2 days ago is that Conan is not in She-Ra, government name Red Sonja. Arnold Schwarzenegger plays a completely new character called Calidor. Now, when I heard the news that it wasn't really Conan, that's probably rights, copyright option. Well, it's some boring business reason why it wasn't Conan. I assumed it was going to be wink, wink, this is really Conan. He's going to look the same, we're just not going to call him Conan. But Calidor is a very different character than Conan. They have different personalities, they have different fighting styles, they have different looks, they have different swords. Yes, it's the same actor with long hair in both roles, but I really, really liked this. The other thing I liked about this movie is I'm a big fan of John Carter of Mars, and this is effectively a John Carter of Mars storyline. Yeah, I know it's Mars, it's sci-fi, but when you read the books, besides, some creatures having 4 arms, it's basically just sword and sorcery. So it can be enjoyed in that way. So the story is very, very simple. Government name very good. So She-Ra's village was attacked, and she was, had bad things happen to her by men. So she doesn't like men. Now she does later introduce to a sister who seems just kind of fine. I'm guessing maybe an older sister who left before the village was attacked. So What happens is she's visited by a fairy godmother or something like that. She's granted strength, which I like because one of the biggest problems I have with movies that have female action leads is, the biological question. Why are women who almost across the board have, lower upper body strength, how is she fighting men? How is she winning against men? How is she fighting multiple men? Well, it's very simple. A magical fairy princess gave her enhanced strength and speed and agility. Boom. Okay. 30 seconds of dialogue. Some okay-ish, mid 1980s spirit special effects, and there we go. Then she goes and they show her training with the sword to explain why she's, what does the master say? You've mastered the masters or something like that. Then she goes into this little crypt with all these swords and she's pick a sword. Well, she picks the sword that is literally calling to her, calling her name, not She-Ra, Red Sonja. There is one, the biggest problem I have is not Brigitte Nielsen's acting, is the first time she fights someone with a sword, her sword gets knocked out of her hand, like immediately. But it's not presented as this is the difference between like training and fighting, because it's just like, you should really not say she's the best swords, wielder in the land, and then just this random like bum in the forest, which I swear two of them were wearing just regular blue jeans, which kind of really took me out of it. But one of the things, there's a really good cast in this. And then, so there's, I'm blanking her name. Oh my gosh. Sandel Bergman, who is Valeria in the first Conan movie. And she actually had a small appearance, I think, in the second one, although she's not credited, so maybe it was a body double. They say that she was offered the role of Red Sonja. I'm not so sure that's true, but she said she was offered it, and then she chose to play Queen Gedrin. Now, one thing I got to say about this movie is I checked it, and the budget was like microscopic compared to Conan the Destroyer from, I believe, the year before. But the designer, this is filmed in Italy, I believe, or Italy, as my grandfather would say. The costumes, the costumes and some of the sets are just freaking amazing. Specifically, the costumes. Everything looks so cool. So, Queen Gedrin is like made the moves on Red Sonja, got rejected, scratched on her face. So she wears this like mask with like gold hanging down to cover her scars, and I really like Sandel Bergman as Valeria, but I think if she did actually get offered the role of She-Ra / Red Sonja, I think she made a wise choice by playing Queen Gedrin. Number one, the failure of the movie was not blamed on her, and number two, she's just really good as Queen Gedrin. There's this orb of talisman something, I forget where it gets its power from, but it can cause these storms. You can destroy a city by storm and thunder. They show that. There's this whole scene where it's stolen by Queen Gedrin's soldiers, and it's just like, for a relatively low budget movie, it just looks great. Like they do this bird's eye view looking down, and all the priestesses are holding swords pointed at the orb, but it's all rotated so that they're reflecting light up towards the camera. And then there's this little like kind of stone thing that covers it, and it's really cool. At one point, Queen Gedrin takes the last remaining priestesses and like kicks them down this well, and you hear them like fall like 30 feet. But then what you really hear them screaming is when the opening at the top closes, because they know they're going to be trapped down there. Like, that's some really good storytelling. And again, it's like straight out of John Carter books. Even like the whole battle with these like kind of like Valkyrie priestesses. First of all, they cast a bunch of really fit women, not necessarily bodybuilders, but tall, fit women. So it was more believable when they're fighting, the mostly male troops of Queen Gedrin, but just an awesome scene. So what happens is the sister escapes. She meets Calidor, and then she dies. Again, really cool scene, like going across this like giant beast. No, that wasn't it. She went like on a zip rope across a chasm with a river below, I believe. And then so Calidor gets into the mix. That's Arnold. Now, back in the day when it first came out, everyone was kind of making fun of this movie. They said it's just a cash grab. They said Arnold is barely in it. Well, apparently Arnold signed a contract thinking he was also just going to be doing a cameo, but I would estimate he is in 20 minutes of this movie. 20, 25 minutes of a 90-minute movie. So he's in a good amount. And again, like I said, I really like Calidor. Again, just like John Carter, you got John Carter, but John Carter kind of fades out of the Barsoom novels after like the first three. Then it becomes, Cartoris and all these other characters. And, his daughter, Thuvia, Maid of Mars. And so this is very much in that vein. It's like, oh, where's John Carter? Oh, he's not here. His son Carthoris is. And Carthoris is a lot like him, but different. So Calidor is actually really not that much like Conan. Not at all. What's his name? Calidor is a High Lord. He dresses very fancy. He's got like a red and gold suit, and he's got like a gold headdress. And then when you find out later that he's a High Lord, you're like, okay, yeah, well, he kind of dresses like a High Lord. He's also really into Red Sonja, but it's not just like, he seems to actually legitimately like her and respect her and be attracted to her. So it was just good. The other thing that is crazy, because to me, kids are usually grim death in a movie. Like, they're bad actors, they're poorly written. Screenwriters don't write kids very well. They always just write them as smart aleck machines. But this one, they have Ernie Reyes Jr., who was cast, because he was actually a martial arts expert at like the age of 5 or something, and swords. So he's cast as this young king whose kingdom had been destroyed. And then they got some like New York City guy to be his, bodyguard, aide de camp, whatever. And you think that story's going to be annoying. This little kid who's bossing adults around, but it's actually like a good story, and the kid can actually do stunts. Like, it's cool. So one of the things you do notice the budget is there aren't a lot of big battle scenes, and a lot of the adventures are kind of like low key. Like, you go into a little basement and it floods with water, and then there's like a really simple monster, but it's cool. I actually thought this movie was actually kind of excellent. Again, Brigitte Nielsen is not that good of an actress, but you know what? I can tell she's really trying. And the rest of the cast is great. The small but simple sets are very good. The fights are good. I actually thought the sword fighting in this one was the best of all of them. I mean, honestly, so I always thought Arnold Schwarzenegger was tall, but now I'm reading, it looks like he's like 5'11" to 6 foot. He's not any kind of like super tall guy. And once you know that, you kind of notice that, hey, yeah, he's actually shorter than a lot of people. But, fairly tall. So him and Brigitte Nielsen are both tall, and then they've got these giant swords, and they have a couple of sword fights, and they're good. I mean, there's even just like, there was one stunt that actually made me like gasp. It was at the end. It was like She-Ra versus Queen Hedron, and she's up on this balcony like 30 feet up, and then she does a flip off of it, and then she lands on her feet, and I was like, wow, that was awesome. Now obviously it's two different shots cut together, but it's still like really cool. Yeah, I love this movie. Go check it out. She-Ra, government name, Red Sonja. I got it on YouTube. I paid like $3.99 for it. Is it worth $3.99? I don't know. Conan the Barbarian with Jason Momoa was only $1.99. They know nobody wants to see that. But whatever, you got an old VHS tape, a DVD. I never see She-Ra come on cable. Conan the Barbarian, yes, the original one. Conan the Destroyer, not really anymore. But yeah, She-Ra never just randomly pops up on cable, so you would have to go buy it. I would say the biggest problem is it seems to be made mostly for kids. It got PG-13 rating in like 1985, but there's like 2 little scenes that like aren't kid friendly. I mean, they're not even scenes. They're like shots in a scene, and I'm like, why did you put that in? You know what I mean? So that's just a little fair warning if you want to, like, if your niece or whatever is in a She-Ra, you kind of need to watch it with them and either distract them or yeah, I guess you'd have to distract them, because fast forward would just show it anyway. But anyway, thanks for watching. And my next video, which I'm very excited about, is I'm gonna go see Once Upon a Time in Hollywood by Quentin Tarantino. And I am so excited. I am doing something I never do. I am literally going to see the very first showing. So I'll have that one up probably tomorrow morning. Thanks for watching. Bye.